Welcome to the Supported Living Property Podcast with your host, me, Lisa Brown, the place to learn about supported living property investing. Hi Dan, it's great to have you here today. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, I was just saying, charging around slightly, but I'm here and all settled. So, Dan, for people who don't know you, do you want to introduce yourself to everyone, please?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll just stop it there, shall we? That's it.
That's it. End of podcast.
Yeah, brilliant. That's easy.
So those who don't know me, obviously Dan Hulbert. I've been in and around property for the last 20 years. Started mainly in construction, but we were flipping properties. I say we, my dad was doing it, and we were sort of on the tools and helping out back in the day. So that would have been like sort of early 2000s. No education from that side of it at all. Dad sort of studied a few books, but never really went into the full education side of it. And then, construction, set up my own contracting company. And then I sort of niched into working with investors to help them build their portfolios. And that included UK and international investors. And now it's the main focus is built portfolio, obviously. We do developments now, and the main focus is the emergency housing in London at the moment. We're looking to expand it, but at the moment the focus very much is London. I think it's 13 or 14 councils that we're working with in the London areas.
So a big area that you're covering.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's massive.
I say we want to go UK wide, but obviously London's a big area anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure there's masses of demand there without going any further, really. Do you want to talk a little bit about the emergency housing? Tell us a little bit about what that is for people who don't know about it.
Yeah, so simply, this is not easy to execute by any means, but the simple version is we work with private landlords, we work with private investors, and we work with local authorities. The end use is emergency housing, temporary accommodation, and we do those on 2 to 4 fixed year terms under FRI leases, so full repair and insuring leases. So we get I love it because it fits my values, because it's helping people. It's a really good end use. We're trying to obviously help people that are in need the most. We're building a really good business with good values. We've got really good support with investment to get the landlords on board. And obviously we've also got a very good base of landlords, private landlords that, want just guaranteed money coming in and don't want the hassle of having to deal with maintenance and management. So that's the simplistic thing in simplistic terms. To do that, it isn't so. It's not so easy, but
no,
I make it sound easy, but it bloody isn't.
No, it's hard work, absolutely. So when you're talking about emergency housing, you're talking about short-term housing for people in need. Is that essentially who are the tenants? Who are the sort of people?
Yeah, so sometimes we have there's government backed grants for the Homeless Reduction Act. That homeless is one of the biggest problems in London, especially. But it could be unfortunately for escaping a domestic abuse. It could be something like Grenfell, like fire and flood, or something like that, where they need accommodation very quickly. And the thing is with London, so people that don't understand this side of it, mainly in London they were doing, and some of them still do, hotels and bed and breakfasts. That's basically what they were doing. So get them in short term. But if you imagine you've got a family of 4, even like a family of 5, 3 kids, and you're going to need at least 4 rooms, if not 5 rooms, in a hotel or a bed and breakfast with no cooking facilities. It's just not practical, and it's just not mainly not practical, but it's bloody expensive as well, because it's 5 rooms. So what they've done is a lot of the councils have adopted a lease model, and that's what we work with. So they'll guarantee a certain amount of money whether they're using the property or not. We get paid regardless, and obviously we pay the landlords regardless, and we pay our investors regardless. So for those fixed terms, but yeah, it's helping a lot of people.
So what kind of properties are needed, Dan? What kind of properties are you?
Oh, they vary. So it could be, two bed flats, houses, 3 bed flats, houses. It could be HMOs. Yeah, and they're generally going to need to be licensed in some form, whether not necessarily obviously but HMO license or other type of licenses. I'm trying to think what they're called now. It's gone out of my head.
So that they meet certain standards, safety standards and stuff, basically.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to do that due diligence at the front end. So yeah.
These are people who need to be in good, safe properties, aren't they? So
yeah, and they're effectively they are the subtenant, effectively.
So you lease the properties from the landlords, and then you arrange the individuals going in and out of the property.
We don't arrange that.
We do that through the councils.
Yeah. We don't have any direct involvement because there can be some very vulnerable people. So it has to be dealt with by professional people that do that day in, day out. So obviously the council have that side.
So you're bringing the properties to them essentially. Yeah. And from comparing that with buy-to-lets and just thinking about how that's different and why it's different to buy-to-lets if you're a standard landlord, what's the difference in using an emergency accommodation rather than
basically, I mean, obviously you've got to deal with the management, you've got to find the tenants, whereas with this for a period of time, obviously it's not necessarily long term like you would with maybe a small young family or something like that, but obviously there are potentials to extend the leases or renew the lease, etc. So but even for that short period of time, they're going to get guaranteed income and not have to worry about maintenance or moving tenants in and out, the state of the property, because the council basically will deal with that side of it.
So you're just left
really the difference.
Yeah.
Most landlords, realistically, most landlords, and I'm not tarring all with the same brush, but me as a landlord, I personally don't want to manage tenants. I'd rather manage a manager to manage the tenants. That's, because I'm a business owner, I see myself as a business owner, and me being in that is not a good use of my time or skills. So it's understanding, trying to work with the landlords, especially like an old school mentality landlord, trying to get them to sort of appreciate that you don't need to do this stuff. You could do this for the next 2 to 5 years. You could potentially have it hands free and not have to worry about it and just enjoy the income, basically.
It's once you've got a property up to a certain standard, it's a way to be a fairly lazy landlord, really, isn't it? You don't.
And a lot of people. I've been around property and networking and talking to people for a long time. Like business networking 15 years, property networking 10 years, and the common denominator for me is there's a very small percentage that want to turn it into a business and actually have a mission, a culture, and actually really drive their vision, whereas most people get into property, and if they're honest, they're either time poor or time lazy. They don't want to do it. They just don't want to do the day-to-day operation. There's a lot of moving parts in property, like in any business. You have to wear a lot of hats when you start, and property's no different. So if most people were honest and said, I've got money but I'd rather someone do it all for me, they would choose that option. Because it's just easier and it's just less headache of, do you know what? It's not so much time. I think this is something I've realised over the years. It's not time, it's headspace to do the things that you need to do in property.
I think that's really it's true, isn't it? And there is a difference in between the two. Yeah.
Really. So, but that would be what we say to the landlords is, it helps you become time free. Headspace free, so you don't have to worry about the day-to-day, the month-to-month, what's going to happen. Have you got, you're going to have no one pay you and the rest of it. So it just gives you a bit of peace of mind. So that's kind of the difference, really.
And do you find people like the model because they also like the fact that they're making a difference and that they're helping people? Do you find that is important.
Yeah, that's a 100% a factor in it. Yeah, look, there's some investors that just like invest. It's an investment and it's good. It's a good return. Then there's some investors, that are really on board with the fact that it is helping people. And I'm not going to lie, everyone's different. But with the landlords, it's the same. They know it's gonna go to the council and they're going to look after it, and so that their needs are met. But they, some of them are like, well, do you know what? It's actually helping out some people in need at a time of crisis, etc. So yeah, it's a win-win for everybody, really.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly find that everyone assumes landlords and property investors are evil people and they're just money grabbing. And actually what we find is an awful lot of people want to work with us and want to let properties to supported living providers. Same, from the same things that you're saying, is actually it's that feel good factor, isn't it? That actually you're making a difference to someone's lives as well as getting a good return. And that's that can be a really...
Money's not always the driver. I mean, I know that sounds it sounds a bit cheesy, but it really isn't. When you've got money coming in and you realise you don't need to work as hard, for example, money's not necessarily the driver. Not for everybody. Most, but so there are people that just want to make more and more and more and more and more, and that's their value, that's their core drive, which is fine. But most of the time, it's not. Money's not the driver. It's the fulfilment. It's the contribution. It's knowing that you're doing something more that's bigger than you, for example. And everybody's got a different view on it, and that's cool. And I respect everybody's views on it. Some people are going to think that people are money grabbers because you're making money, but at the end of the day, those people worked hard to buy those properties to get the money to do that, and in some form outside of the property. So I think sometimes it's a perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I really do. Lots of people will be listening to this thinking, well, how would I get into emergency accommodation? Sounds interesting. I like the idea that I could potentially, let my property to the local authority or the council and do that. What would you say to them, Dan, about getting...
Follow the links in the show notes. Get in touch. Look, I've got two business partners, Gary Sanford and Mohammed Islam. And Mo, to give you a bit of background, so Mo sort of started this process well over a year, probably nearly 2 years ago now. And it was through an employee or an ex-employee that he had working with him that got him the contacts that he needed within the councils. It wasn't something he was planning on doing. And then, obviously, as I say, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Your network is truly your net worth. It's as easy as it is to say, but it takes years to build those relationships. And that's effectively what happened. And then Gary, my business partner through Holsford, was already investing with Mo. And then he mentioned it to me and said to me at the end of last year, so effectively as a partnership, we've all been working together since January this year.
Right, okay.
But it was all kicking off around October, November time last year. And they said, do you want to do some units? And I was like, well, I didn't have any cash personally at the time. But I was like, I know a few close family friends that might be interested in investing. It's a good return. It's a solid model. Needs a bit of tweaking here and there, but we can sort that out. And then we said, well, let's try and get 10 units, maybe 15 units. I ended up getting enough investment for 47 units.
Wow. And by units, you mean like rooms within a property?
No, properties, actual properties. So that's a mixture of 2 to 5 bed properties.
Okay.
Rooms.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Because everyone works them out differently. That's why I was just checking.
We say units because the reason why we say units, and that's part of our language, if you like, is because they are properties, but we don't own them. We control them through agreements, obviously, and we manage the process. So we just call them units because we know then that it's a 2-bed unit, a 3-bed unit, 4-bed unit. It's just what we've always said from the get-go, really. But yeah, they are. When I say units, I mean properties, not rooms.
Yeah.
If they're rooms, I would say rooms.
Yeah.
just for your listeners, really, just so they understand.
It's important to differentiate because everyone uses different terminology. So
So that's kind of how it happened, and then we decided to set up a sort of joint venture together and work together. My background has always been, since being in properties, using other people's money to invest and then pay them back for a bit of a return, and then I keep the asset. And that's all I've ever done. Whereas Gary's always done it with his own money, built a really decent portfolio, and Mo's done a mixture of both, basically. And Mo's strength was getting the landlords, and Gary's strength was looking at the operations and seeing how we can tweak things, and my strength was getting the investors in. So it was a nice partnership to sort of work on that together. So since January, since the partnerships happened, we've worked with, it's technically 9 councils in that space of time from January to now. Basically end of October it'll be by the time we fulfill everything. From the new year, we'll have another 3 or 4 coming on board. And prior to the January start, we had a couple of other councils that we'd worked with. So effectively, it's 14 to sort of 16 councils in total. But in the period I'm talking about, January to now, it was 9. We've had 50 to 60 investors work with us. 50% of them have either reinvested again, or because they've had their capital back, or they've put more money in. It's just over 6 million in private finance that we've raised since January. That's
really impressive, isn't it? That's really big numbers.
Yeah, it is big numbers. It is big numbers. But it's been my job to just keep pushing that. 2/3 of that has been through my own personal connections. And the rest has kind of been through a mixture of all of us, just pushing it through other connections we had got. And then we've now, with the councils that we had, it was 1,452 units of properties that we had to fulfill. And we did that last week.
That's really,
We finalised it last week, and we were very, very happy.
It's amazing. There's such big numbers, aren't they, of people in quite a short space of time. I get that you've all been working in this, it's not that you just started in property in January. You've brought all your experience and your skills and your backgrounds to
it's becoming an overnight. It's taken 20 years to become an overnight success.
I love that one. Yeah, absolutely.
I've been networking a long time. It's taken 15 years of networking and connecting, and a lot of those investors that have invested are people that I met all those years ago. So it's just about consistently being there and showing up, and a lot of the investors that have worked with us, tier 2, what I call tier 2 investors. So for your listeners, what that means, anyone who's new to raising finance, you've got tier 1, so your connections, so people that know you personally. Know Gary personally, know Mo personally, know me personally. They'll invest. Then they might talk to someone they know and said, look, I've just invested in this. Are you interested in talking to Dan? Let's have a chat. That's tier 2. We've not had anyone outside of that tier 2. But so I wouldn't just be on social media and someone goes, oh, I see you do emergency housing. Can I get involved? Through no connection.
No.
If it turned out that connection knew one of tier 1 or 2 connections, then technically they would become a tier 2 connection, if that makes sense. So it's very rare that we get much interest outside of our actual network, because that we're trying to build our network and keep it quite close knit with who we know, really, and I think that's important as well. With the business. So
because also it's a two-way relationship, isn't it? You need to also know and like your investors as well, and that make sure they're aligned with you, as well as it needs to work both ways. And I think when people start working with investors, they don't really realize that. They're just grateful for anyone who might be offering them some money, which obviously is a great position to be in, but sometimes they're maybe not the right person to work with you, are they? So I think
absolutely, no, like and trust works both ways. 100%. And I mean, I remember it was 2012 was the first time I'd actually invested in my own property, like my own portfolio. And I remember needing 10 grand from someone. And I was like, anybody, just please. And I remember being at a business breakfast network. And I was chatting away to everybody. I was just talking to, that was the only conversation I was having, basically. I wasn't even talking about my contracting business. It was just like, yeah, we just started up in property. Da, da, da. And I remember getting this tap on the shoulder, and her name was Barbara. And she said to me, she was basically a virtual assistant. That's what she did. Lovely lady. And she just said, I know I've heard you a couple of times talking to people, and I don't know if you're going to come and talk to me about it, but I am interested in having a chat. So I had a quick chat with her there and then. I said, do you want to meet up for a coffee? And blah, blah, blah. She's like, yeah. Anyway, I offered her like 10%, no matter what, you get 10%, whether it's 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, it will be within 12 months, but I'll give you 10%, and it was like giving her basically giving everything away, really. You know what I mean? And then, and we fulfilled it. We refinanced and gave her a 10K back plus her 10%, which ended up, I think, coming out of our own pocket, 500 quid each out of mine and my mate's pocket, to give her the interest, because it didn't refinance as much as we wanted it to. But these things happen in property, but as long as you do what you say you're going to do and you actually pay what you pay, it's fine. But it's just, now it's a lot more discussion around, what's important to the investor and is this the right investment for them? Because if it's not, I will not sell it. I do not sell it at all. No. Not from a point of view of what traditional sales is. It's very much that this is what it is. It might not be for you. It might be for you. There's no pressure from us. If you feel like this is the right opportunity, then we'd love to work with you. You know me. I know you. However, if this isn't, there's this and this that we do as well, and it might be more to your liking. It might be more to your risk appetite, etc. So I'm trying to find. It's not about me at all. All I can do is offer my integrity, my trust, my values to the party, and then if they like what they see and they believe in me and the business, then it's a win-win, and that's how it should be.
And that's it. I think as soon as someone starts feeling pressured around money, particularly, people back off, don't they? Or
you should never pressure.
No.
And this is why I hear this argument on social media and in training things, and what comes first? Like, obviously the chicken and the egg, but what comes first, investment or the property? Like, for me, investors come first. That's my opinion. Whether people agree with that or not is up to them. But I think you should be building relationships with investors now. And the last thing you want to do is pressure someone or have nothing lined up when a deal comes along, because if it's a great deal, money will come. That's absolute bullshit. It's just absolute BS, because I've had lots of deals come along and I've not had the money early days, and I've missed out on them. But have I missed out on them? Because everything happens at the right time anyway. So for me, it's line up your relationships with people that you feel you can work with, that you might know have money, or they know some people that might have money. So they're the sort of strategic partnerships and relationships you need to be building now. If you're getting into property right now, that's what you need to be doing, in my opinion, first.
And then who have you found are the people with money? Are they the people that before you got into this would have been the people you thought would have had money in the room when you're chatting at an event?
I do not judge. So I've got a saying: be curious, not judgmental, which isn't saying that's out there anyway, but that I stick to it, and I just talk to anybody, because it's not always something that I learned very early on in networking is be a farmer, not a hunter.
Okay.
And it's about cultivating relationships, and people don't want to cultivate anything these days. They want to plant the seed and then they want to harvest it the next day. And cultivation is a process that is the most important part. Obviously, you have to plant the seed, which is important, and you have to harvest it at the end. But if you're not looking after it in the middle and supporting it, then it's never going to happen. So for me, cultivation is a big thing. So that's why it's become, be a farmer, go in, show up, plant the seeds, tell them what you're doing, but follow up. Say to them, it was great to meet you, blah, blah, blah. And then you might follow up 2 or 3 times, you might follow up, and this could be over a space of a few months, And then if you like what you are both talking about, and there's some sort of synergy there, then meet up for a coffee or go for lunch or whatever. Don't just go straight in for the meet up, because it might be a complete waste of time for both of you. So for me, it's about cultivating the relationship first, understanding their wants, needs, desires, and then going for, let's take this a little bit further. Let's see what else we can do and explore it a bit further. And I don't think people do that.
No, and that consistency can be through social media as well, can't it? As well as
of course it can. Yeah. It might be like, so when I go to a network, I don't do a lot of what I call normal networking anymore. I don't go to like PIN meetings or progressive meetings anymore. I up till probably just before lockdown, I was actually running my own network event. I built up an event called the Property Vault in Kent, and I've been running it for like 4 or 5 years. We were getting 50 to 100 people every month. It's a really good network. I enjoyed it, but it did get it was like quite hard work towards the end, because there's a lot of things going on. And about then I sort of kind of stopped networking, really. I stopped going to other people's networks that were just regular monthly meetups, basically, is what I'm saying. But when I used to go to them, I would talk to someone, get a card, and then I would go on social media. I'd connect with, I'd email and blah, 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 but I'd go on social media first and see if there's any connections, see if they know anyone that I know quite well. And then I'd say to the on the email, say, it's great to meet you, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I see you know. And if they didn't, I wouldn't say anything. But 9 times out of 10, they knew someone that I knew fairly well. So I'd be like, oh, I see you're connected with so-and-so on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever. I'm just Facebook stalking you or something. I'll make a joke of it. So just checking out if you knew anybody I knew. And then I'll, to keep it nice and transparent, and just say, look, I think there's some potential synergy there. Or do you fancy having a call? Or it just depends on who it is, and the conversation you have depends on how you answer or do the follow-up. But for me, it's show up, follow up, meet up. It's a simple process, but it does work.
Well, obviously, look how much money you've raised. So
It's an interesting concept with it all, to be honest. I find it fascinating with connecting with people and that side. But definitely be a farmer. A hunter is just someone who goes in, gives their cards out, and goes home, sort of thing. You see them. Lisa, you've been.
We've all seen them.
You've been to networks, and you've seen that person going around just giving their cards out, and
or people who brag that they're doing 3 networking events in one evening. You're like, okay, fine.
But what I do with those people that you do meet like that, I still follow up with them. And I'll just say to them, it's great to meet you. I see you got around a lot of people, ha ha ha. And I'll just make a bit of a joke of it, and then just say, look, if you it depends on what you're doing. I said, it might not line up with what I'm doing right now, but let's maybe have a chat and see where we can go. And 9 times out of 10, those people don't even get back to you.
No.
Because they don't give a monkeys.
No.
And they don't know how to work. They don't know how to work the room properly.
No.
So don't be a hunter, be a farmer.
Great advice there, Dan. Thanks ever so much. It's been great chatting to you today. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.